In a world where success is often measured by wealth and power, one man's journey to the top wasn't just about building an empire, it was about survival, betrayal, and redemption. Meet Alexander Hunter, a brilliant mind in the tech world. But his success came at a price. When those closest to him turned on him, Alexander had to fight back, not just for his company, but for his very identity. Betrayal. Ambition. Power. Who can you trust when everything you've built is on the line? In today's story, we dive deep into the rise and fall of those who seek to control the future of tech. And one man's battle to prove that power, in the end, can't be taken, it must be earned. This is the story of Alexander Hunter's triumph and the cost of ambition. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to comment with your thoughts as we unfold the gripping saga ahead. Alexander Stone was a quiet, reserved man who preferred to stay out of the spotlight. He lived in a modest house on the outskirts of the city, a peaceful place where few people knew him. Behind his calm demeanor was a sharp intellect and a financial empire that he had quietly built over the years. Alexander was an early adopter of Bitcoin and, over the course of more than a decade, had accumulated a vast fortune, one that no one knew about, not even his wife, Rachel. Rachel, a beautiful and sophisticated woman, had always been drawn to the images of success that she saw in the world around her. She couldn't stop comparing her life to others, especially to Ethan Ford, a successful CEO and Alexander's college friend. Ethan owned a large, well-known tech company, an empire Rachel always dreamed of being a part of. Over time, the relationship between Alexander and Rachel began to fray, as Rachel felt that her life lacked the prestige and wealth that Ethan seemed to have. One day, Rachel informed Alexander that she wanted a divorce. She told him she could no longer endure the dullness of their life and that she had found a new opportunity with Ethan, someone who could provide her with the wealth, power, and status she desired. "You're just not enough for me," Rachel said coldly. "Ethan has everything I want. I can't keep living this way." Alexander, feeling betrayed, didn't react with anger or rash actions. He knew life was a long game, and rather than act impulsively, he decided to prepare for a major shift. He realized that Rachel wasn't seeking love or stability, she was seeking recognition and the outward trappings of success. He didn't want to fight for her affection, but he wasn't about to let himself be underestimated. In silence, Alexander began to formulate his plan for retribution. He invested more into Bitcoin and began carefully researching Ethan's company, TechGen. Though TechGen was highly successful, Alexander discovered that Ethan had made several mistakes in the management of the company, financial decisions that, if left unchecked, could lead to its downfall. With his vast fortune from Bitcoin, Alexander began buying shares in TechGen, slowly building his influence within the company. While Rachel and Ethan believed everything was going according to their plan, Alexander had been quietly accumulating shares in TechGen. He knew that financial power and a deep understanding of the market could help him take over Ethan's position without anyone realizing it. One day, at a pivotal board meeting at TechGen, Alexander made his move. Everyone was shocked when he walked into the room, but the real surprise came when he exposed Ethan's financial misconduct. He revealed failed investments, poor spending decisions, and a series of shady financial dealings that Ethan had made to maintain the image of success. With solid evidence, Alexander skillfully toppled Ethan during the meeting, becoming the interim CEO of TechGen. With the shift in power, Ethan lost everything: his wealth, his reputation, and his position in the company he had built. Investigations into his financial misdeeds quickly followed, and Ethan found himself facing serious charges of fraud. Everything he had worked for crumbled in an instant. Rachel, meanwhile, also faced disappointment and loss. She realized that she had missed out on a stable, promising life with Alexander. She saw him now not only as a successful man but as someone with the ability to change an entire industry. But it was too late. Her relationship with Ethan also quickly fell apart as he was dragged into legal troubles. Under Alexander's leadership, TechGen began to recover and thrive. He focused on building a sustainable company based on true innovation and value. Alexander didn't need to seek personal revenge because he understood that his actions had already done enough. He wasn't interested in proving anything to Rachel or Ethan, he just wanted to focus on the growth of the company and prove his success through real, tangible achievements. When Rachel and Ethan came to him, asking for forgiveness and reconciliation, Alexander turned them down. The betrayal they had caused had shattered any possibility of mending the relationship. There was no longer any room for forgiveness. Alexander continued his path, building his empire and letting karma do the rest. After assuming control of TechGen, Alexander Stone became a household name in the tech world. His calculated rise to power had been swift and strategic, and now, the company was flourishing under his leadership. But as TechGen gained prominence, it drew more attention, both positive and negative. The first challenge Alexander faced came in the form of a new rival, Samantha Reyes, a brilliant entrepreneur and CEO of an emerging startup, Omnitech, that focused on AI and machine learning. Samantha had heard of Alexander's ascension and the way he had outmaneuvered Ethan. She admired his business acumen, but also saw him as a threat. Omnitech had gained rapid traction in the AI sector, and with TechGen now standing as a formidable force in the tech industry, Samantha saw an opportunity to take Alexander down before he grew any stronger. Samantha's approach was not direct. Instead, she played the long game, positioning herself as a potential ally to Alexander. She knew that to compete with TechGen, she needed to understand Alexander's strategy and outwit him at his own game. Just as Alexander began to settle into his new role as CEO of TechGen, an unexpected figure reappeared in his life, Ethan Ford. After months of legal battles and the public fallout from his financial mismanagement, Ethan had been forced to resign from TechGen and had faced several criminal investigations. But Ethan wasn't done yet. He had spent the last few months rebuilding his network, creating alliances in the shadow of his fall from grace. Ethan approached Alexander with a surprising proposition. He wanted to collaborate, not in the traditional sense, but to form an underground group of tech moguls who could use their collective power to influence the tech industry in ways that the public could never imagine. Ethan believed that together, they could control the future of tech, bypassing the law, manipulating market trends, and securing massive profits without anyone knowing. Alexander was both intrigued and repulsed by Ethan's proposition. He had no interest in taking part in illicit activities, but Ethan's offer came with a twist. It was not just a business proposition, but a challenge to Alexander's authority. Ethan knew that Alexander could not simply ignore the offer without appearing weak to those in the industry who still held grudges against him. While Alexander contemplated Ethan's offer, Samantha Reyes made her move. She reached out to him under the guise of a friendly partnership, proposing that TechGen and Omnitech work together to build a new revolutionary tech platform that could reshape the future of AI-driven technology. Her pitch was convincing, and her presence was magnetic. Samantha's offer seemed too good to pass up. She promised that her cutting-edge AI technology could enhance TechGen's product lines, and in return, TechGen would provide the resources and market reach to launch Omnitech into the global spotlight. What Alexander didn't know, however, was that Samantha had been gathering information about TechGen's weaknesses. She had also started to subtly sow discord within Alexander's inner circle, turning some of his most trusted employees against him. As Alexander grew more embroiled in the new partnership with Samantha, he started to notice strange occurrences, missing documents, security breaches in the system, and small but significant errors in the company's financial reports. Alexander's instinct told him something was wrong, but he couldn't yet prove it. The truth came to light when one of Alexander's most trusted employees, Lucas Bennett, a former investment banker whom Alexander had brought into TechGen, secretly met with Samantha. Lucas had been feeding her information about TechGen's vulnerabilities, using his position to manipulate the financial statements and supply chain reports. His loyalty had always been questionable, but Alexander had never suspected that Lucas would betray him. When the information came to light, Alexander realized that he was at a crossroads. Not only had his new ally, Samantha, been manipulating him, but one of his own people had sold him out. Betrayal cut deeper when it came from within, and Alexander now found himself facing threats from all sides: Ethan's underground network, Samantha's deceptive partnership, and Lucas's treasonous actions. In a bold move, Alexander called a high-stakes board meeting. He publicly exposed Lucas's betrayal and removed him from TechGen, along with several other key players who had been compromised. But the real shock came when Alexander revealed his next move: he would not bow to the pressure of those trying to manipulate or control him. Instead, he would take down the entire system from within. As the news of the betrayal spread, Alexander took a step back and re-evaluated his strategy. He knew that the only way to truly secure his position was to outsmart both Ethan and Samantha. He had been operating in the open for too long, and now, he needed to retreat into the shadows to make his next move. While Ethan's underground network had its reach, Alexander had a hidden advantage: his mastery over the digital world, thanks to his deep knowledge of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. He began creating a decentralized network, one that would allow him to exert control over not just TechGen, but the entire tech industry. This would be his way of ensuring that no one could manipulate or coerce him again. At the same time, Samantha, feeling threatened by Alexander's resilience, launched a full-scale PR campaign to undermine his reputation. She used the media to paint him as a ruthless, cold CEO who cared only about money and power. She played the role of the benevolent innovator, positioning herself as the true visionary for the future of AI technology. But Alexander, in his silence, prepared for the final showdown. He would expose Samantha's manipulations, Ethan's illegal dealings, and Lucas's betrayal in a move so calculated and precise that it would leave them with no recourse. The battle for control of the future of tech was far from over. Alexander knew that the world was changing rapidly, and those who couldn't keep up would be left behind. But he also knew that he had the power to shape the future, whether they liked it or not. The final twist came when Alexander revealed the full extent of his plan. Instead of destroying his enemies outright, he offered them an ultimatum. They could join him, or they could face the consequences of their actions. He would allow them to be a part of his new vision for the future, but only if they were willing to relinquish their corrupt ways. As the story ended, Alexander stood at the precipice of a new beginning. TechGen was poised to lead a new era of technological advancements, driven by his vision and unshakable resolve. But the question remained: would Samantha and Ethan accept his offer, or would they fall to their own hubris? With the tech world watching and his empire growing, Alexander's rise was far from over. The future held countless possibilities, and the choices he made now would determine the course of everything to come. As Alexander's influence continued to grow, the pressure mounted from all sides. His efforts to build a decentralized network had put him on the map as one of the most influential figures in the tech world, but it also made him a target for those seeking to disrupt or take control of his empire. In the quiet of his penthouse office, Alexander spent his nights researching the new wave of technology and innovation. He knew that true power didn't lie in the products one created, but in the systems that governed them. Blockchain, decentralized finance, and artificial intelligence, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle that could be used to reshape the world. But power, as Alexander had learned, was fragile. While TechGen prospered, the world around him was shifting in ways he couldn't control. Just as Alexander thought his path was clear, another figure from his past resurfaced: Rachel. After her failed relationship with Ethan, Rachel had fallen out of the public eye. Her attempts to align herself with powerful men had backfired, leaving her with nothing but the ashes of her previous life. Yet, she knew how to play the game of influence, and she was far from ready to remain invisible forever. Rachel came to Alexander with a surprising proposal. She wanted to help him expand TechGen's influence in international markets. She had contacts in the political world, particularly in emerging markets, where Alexander's tech could dominate. Though Alexander had no interest in rekindling any personal relationship with Rachel, he couldn't deny that her offer had merit. However, there was more to Rachel's return than she let on. Behind her polished exterior, she harbored resentment for the way she had treated Alexander, not just in their marriage, but in the way she had misjudged him for so long. Rachel wasn't just looking to mend fences, she was looking to prove that her judgment had been right, that she had been right to leave him for someone she believed could give her more. Now, with Ethan's fall from grace, Rachel had nowhere else to turn. She was desperate to find new allies, but Alexander knew better than to trust her so easily. Despite his reservations, Alexander agreed to her proposal, but with a condition: he would keep a close eye on her every move. Rachel, sensing that her position was fragile, reluctantly accepted. While Rachel made her return, Alexander's greatest challenge came from Samantha Reyes, who, having recovered from the earlier fallout, was now even more determined to make TechGen and Alexander fall. Samantha realized that her previous attempts at seduction and manipulation had failed. She had underestimated Alexander's intellect and resilience, and her attempts to undermine him had backfired. So, she changed tactics. Instead of going directly after Alexander, Samantha decided to focus on his employees, particularly those who had been loyal to him from the beginning. She began planting seeds of doubt among Alexander's team. She reached out to several key executives at TechGen, offering them lucrative positions at Omnitech in exchange for valuable insider information. Samantha's influence was subtle at first, using her charisma and promises of power to slowly turn those around Alexander against him. Some of his most trusted allies began to question whether they were truly on the right side, or whether Alexander's rise to power was nothing more than a series of opportunistic moves. While Samantha worked to destabilize TechGen from within, she also sought to win Alexander's trust again. She contacted him under the guise of a partnership, promising that Omnitech's cutting-edge AI could take TechGen to new heights. But Alexander had learned to be cautious. The more Samantha pushed for collaboration, the more suspicious he became of her motives. He kept his cards close to his chest, allowing her to believe she was winning his favor, all the while laying the groundwork for his own counterplay. The tension between Alexander, Samantha, and Rachel reached its peak when a major conference was scheduled, the Global Innovation Summit, a platform where the world's tech leaders would present their most groundbreaking innovations. It was the perfect stage for a final showdown. On the eve of the conference, Alexander received a shocking tip. Lucas Bennett, the traitor he had ousted earlier, had gone underground. But it wasn't just him. Lucas had been working with both Samantha and Rachel to set up a massive tech hack that could compromise TechGen's entire network. Their goal was clear: destroy Alexander's empire by exposing his vulnerabilities to the world and revealing his past dealings with Bitcoin, which could easily be twisted to suggest illicit activities. Alexander knew that this was the moment of reckoning. His enemies had pooled their resources and their knowledge to break him down. But Alexander wasn't afraid. He had prepared for this. He had already anticipated that they would try to undermine him. In a move of sheer brilliance, he had already infiltrated their operations. Alexander had used his deep knowledge of blockchain to set up a false trail, a trap that would lead Lucas, Samantha, and Rachel straight into a financial and digital dead end. The hack they were planning would backfire, and the evidence they thought they had against him would expose their own illegal activities instead. At the summit, Alexander revealed the truth. As he took the stage to present TechGen's newest product, a breakthrough AI platform that would revolutionize automation, he did something no one expected. He exposed the treacherous plot against him, broadcasting the information to the entire world. He showed how Samantha, Rachel, and Lucas had been working together to sabotage his company and steal proprietary technology. The audience was stunned. For Samantha, this was a devastating blow. She had lost everything. Her reputation was shattered, and Omnitech's future was uncertain. Rachel, realizing that she had been manipulated and had gambled her last chance at redemption, was left alone, her influence in tatters. Ethan Ford, from the shadows, watched it all unfold. He had hoped to use this crisis to his advantage, but now it seemed that Alexander had outmaneuvered him once again. The underground network he had built was unraveling, and there was little left for him to salvage. With his enemies defeated and his empire secure, Alexander turned his attention back to TechGen. The company was now stronger than ever. He had proven that power wasn't about brute force or alliances with the corrupt, it was about intelligence, resilience, and the ability to navigate the shifting tides of the world. As for Rachel, she came to him one last time, broken and desperate. "I was wrong," she admitted. "I never saw your potential. Please, give me another chance." But Alexander, his heart hardened by the years of betrayal and manipulation, could not offer her redemption. "You had your chance," he replied coldly. "You chose the wrong path. Now, you will face the consequences." With that, Rachel left, and Alexander stood alone, looking out at the horizon. The world was his to shape, and the future was wide open. The fallout from Alexander's exposure of the conspiracy had sent shockwaves through the global tech community. His enemies were in disarray, and his loyal followers had rallied around him. TechGen's stock soared, and Alexander's leadership was now undisputed. But with power came new challenges, and the world was watching. The Global Innovation Summit had cemented his reputation, but Alexander knew the true work was only just beginning. The fallout had also left a vacuum of power, one that others would attempt to fill. The world was changing rapidly, new industries, emerging technologies, and new forms of power were constantly being born. Alexander realized that the tech world, much like the financial markets, was a constant game of cat and mouse, and he had to remain ahead of the curve. The success of TechGen was no longer just about creating groundbreaking technology, it had become about managing a vast empire of resources, intellectual properties, and key players. Every move he made would be scrutinized by rivals, investors, and the media. But Alexander was no ordinary leader. His calm demeanor, strategic mind, and unshakable resolve had allowed him to rise above the chaos, and he wasn't about to let that go to waste. Just when Alexander thought the path ahead was clear, Ethan Ford resurfaced. After months of laying low, he reappeared in the media, claiming he had turned over a new leaf. Ethan publicly distanced himself from the illegal dealings and corruption that had once defined his career, and he made bold claims that he now sought redemption. Ethan had spent his time in hiding, rebuilding his reputation and his wealth, and now he was positioning himself as a leader of a new, socially responsible tech movement. He had been in contact with influential figures from the non-profit sector, as well as government agencies, aiming to create a new framework for how the tech industry should operate, a framework that would rival Alexander's vision. But Alexander wasn't fooled. He knew that Ethan's sudden change of heart was just another play for power. Ethan was still the same ambitious, manipulative figure, and Alexander understood that he needed to be watched closely. In a bold move, Ethan declared that he was launching a new startup, Equinox Technologies, focused on green energy solutions and sustainable tech. He positioned himself as the antithesis to Alexander's cutthroat approach, calling out TechGen for its lack of social responsibility and accusing Alexander of caring only about profits. This new threat to Alexander's empire was not just a business competitor, it was a personal attack on his leadership. Ethan's calculated campaign targeted Alexander's image, questioning his motives and the ethics behind his rise to power. As Alexander navigated the mounting pressure from Ethan, he began to realize that he needed to build new alliances to counter the threat. The world was changing, and his old tactics of control and isolation were no longer enough. Alexander reached out to Sophia Moreau, an influential figure in the world of sustainable technology. Sophia had long been a vocal advocate for green tech and had led several successful initiatives in the renewable energy sector. She had the vision, expertise, and credibility to make a real impact, but her principles were as unyielding as Alexander's. She had a reputation for refusing to compromise on her values, something Alexander admired and respected. At first, Sophia was skeptical of Alexander's intentions. She had heard the rumors about his rise to power, the manipulations, and the betrayals. But after a series of private meetings, she began to see that Alexander was a different kind of leader. He wasn't interested in being a puppet of the system, he wanted to build something lasting, something that could truly change the world. Their discussions led to the creation of a new initiative, TechGen Green, a division within TechGen focused solely on creating sustainable, environmentally friendly technologies. This would allow TechGen to stay at the forefront of innovation while addressing the growing concerns about the impact of tech on the planet. Sophia became a key partner in this new division, and together, they worked to position TechGen as a leader in both tech and sustainability. It was a strategic move, one that would not only improve TechGen's public image but also create a formidable counterbalance to Ethan's green tech efforts. However, despite the partnership, Alexander knew that he couldn't trust anyone fully, not even Sophia. The business world was a game, and in this game, alliances were often just temporary measures. As if the competition from Ethan and the new green tech initiative weren't enough, Rachel reappeared in Alexander's life once again. This time, she wasn't coming to him with offers of redemption or new partnerships. She had been in contact with several of Alexander's old rivals, and her role had changed. She was no longer the woman who had tried to manipulate him. Now, she had become an agent of chaos, a wild card in the game of power. Rachel had been working behind the scenes with former business associates of Ethan, including some shady venture capitalists, and she had gathered enough leverage to start her own clandestine operations. She was now secretly helping to fund several anti-TechGen movements, using her influence and connections to undermine Alexander's legitimacy in the industry. Rachel's true motivations were unclear. Was she simply acting out of spite? Or was she trying to make amends for her past mistakes, seeking control in a different way? Either way, she posed a serious threat to Alexander's vision. But Alexander wasn't one to be easily caught off guard. He knew that Rachel was dangerous, and he had no intention of allowing her to disrupt his empire. He began to track her movements, working with his network of spies to gather information on her operations. As Alexander and Ethan's battle for dominance continued, and as Rachel played both sides against the other, the tension between them reached its boiling point. In an unexpected turn of events, Ethan reached out to Alexander with an offer of reconciliation. He wanted to join forces, combining TechGen's resources with Equinox Technologies to create a new kind of tech company, one that could change the world for good. But Alexander knew better than to trust him. Ethan was always one step away from betrayal. So, instead of accepting his offer, Alexander turned the tables and launched a public campaign to expose Ethan's true intentions, once again painting him as a manipulative figure who used people for his own gain. Ethan, furious, retaliated with a devastating attack on TechGen's core infrastructure. A cyber attack, orchestrated with the help of Rachel and her backers, sent shockwaves through the company. Data was corrupted, key systems were compromised, and TechGen's reputation was put in jeopardy. In the midst of the chaos, Alexander made one final move. He revealed to the world the full extent of Ethan and Rachel's conspiracy, using the very same decentralized blockchain network that had once secured his rise to power. The world saw the truth unfold, and both Ethan and Rachel were publicly disgraced. But Alexander, ever the strategist, had the last laugh. He not only regained control of TechGen but also positioned the company as a defender of privacy and security in a digital age where power could be manipulated in the shadows. As the dust settled, Alexander stood victorious once again. The tech world had been rocked by betrayal, sabotage, and ambition, but Alexander had emerged stronger, his empire solidified. He had survived the darkest betrayals, confronted the most powerful foes, and had created a legacy that no one could easily erase. TechGen was not just a tech company anymore, it was a symbol of resilience, innovation, and the unrelenting pursuit of power. But Alexander knew that his journey was far from over. As he looked out over the skyline of his company's headquarters, he knew that the next challenge was already on the horizon. The future would not be kind to the weak, and he was prepared for whatever came next. The world was watching as Alexander's empire stood resilient against the storm that had threatened to topple it. The media, once full of negative stories about TechGen's alleged wrongdoings, was now focused on the company's triumphant return. The press, having witnessed the fall of Ethan Ford and the unraveling of Rachel's schemes, were quick to portray Alexander as a hero in the tech world, a man who had risen from the ashes, defeating the forces of corruption and betrayal. TechGen's new sustainability division, TechGen Green, had already begun to change the public narrative. With Sophia Moreau leading the charge, TechGen was now spearheading several innovative projects that would revolutionize energy consumption and environmental impact. The company's commitment to transparency, ethical practices, and groundbreaking technology made it a beacon of hope in an industry marred by scandal. However, Alexander knew that no victory was permanent, especially in a world where alliances were fragile and enemies were ever present. He had learned this the hard way. The cost of his rise to power had been immense, friendships lost, trust betrayed, and his own personal life in shambles. Now, with the business world secure, he faced the more pressing matter of what kind of person he wanted to become moving forward. Ethan Ford and Rachel had underestimated Alexander, believing their combined forces could bring him down. What they hadn't accounted for was Alexander's ability to anticipate their every move. The public shaming that followed the exposure of their conspiracy was devastating. Ethan's Equinox Technologies was dissolved, its once promising future in tatters. Rachel's alliances crumbled as her influence evaporated. Ethan, now completely disgraced, was under investigation for his role in the cyber attack on TechGen. The SEC had launched an investigation into his past financial dealings, and it was clear that his ambition and ruthlessness had finally caught up with him. His dream of reshaping the tech industry lay in ruins, his wealth and power slipping through his fingers. Rachel, too, had lost everything. Her business ventures had failed, and her attempts to salvage her reputation only made things worse. Alone and broken, she sought solace from those who had once been close to her, but Alexander knew that no one would ever truly forgive her for the devastation she had caused. She had burned too many bridges. In a final act of defiance, Rachel reached out to Alexander, hoping to mend their broken relationship. But he, having seen the damage she had inflicted not only on his life but also on her own, turned her down coldly. "You had your chance," he said. "Now, the world will have its say." It was clear now, the era of betrayal and power struggles was over. Alexander had emerged victorious, but not without scars. As the dust settled and the fallout from the last battle came to a close, Alexander turned his focus inward. He had built TechGen from the ground up, but now he faced the bigger question: what kind of legacy did he want to leave behind? For years, he had been consumed by ambition, driven by the need to outsmart his rivals and conquer new frontiers. But now, with the battles behind him, Alexander realized that true power didn't come from domination alone. It came from making a meaningful impact on the world. TechGen was more than just a tech company now. It had become a force for good, a company that not only created innovative products but also prioritized sustainability, equality, and social responsibility. With Sophia by his side, the two of them worked tirelessly to ensure that the next generation of technology would be built with a sense of purpose, not just profit. Meanwhile, Alexander began to repair his personal life. He reached out to those he had pushed away, including his former colleagues who had stayed loyal to him throughout the years. He knew that no empire, no matter how powerful, could thrive without the support of trusted individuals. And, perhaps more importantly, Alexander began to think about his own future, his own happiness. One day, as Alexander sat in his office, he received an unexpected visitor, Julia Weston, his old friend from his early days in business. Julia had once been a close ally, a mentor even, and the two had parted ways years ago when Alexander's rise to power had caused a rift in their relationship. Julia, who had worked in tech for over 2 decades, had always been wary of Alexander's methods but admired his intellect and drive. Julia, however, was no longer just the consultant or the advisor she once was. She had grown into a powerful force in the industry in her own right, and her influence was vast. She had watched Alexander's rise and fall with a mixture of admiration and caution. But now, with Ethan and Rachel gone, she saw an opportunity. "I've been watching you, Alexander," Julia said as they sat down together. "The world is changing. The old ways of doing business are no longer viable. People are looking for leaders who can unite, who can guide the world toward a better future. It's time for you to step up." Alexander listened carefully. He had built an empire, but Julia's words reminded him that there was more at stake than just his own ambitions. The world needed leadership, but it needed the right kind of leadership, one that was driven by vision, not greed. "I'm ready," Alexander replied. "What do you have in mind?" Together, they began to plan a new initiative that would reshape the tech industry and the global economy. It would focus on education, empowerment, and creating opportunities for those who have been left behind by the rapid advancement of technology. It was a bold vision, one that would require sacrifice, innovation, and cooperation. As Alexander and Julia began to work on their new project, the world around them continued to evolve. TechGen's future was secure, and Alexander's reputation had been restored. He had made mistakes, but he had also learned from them. He was no longer the man driven solely by ambition, he was a man who had a greater purpose in mind. The new initiative, which they named Future Forward, became a movement. It focused on providing resources, training, and opportunities for individuals in underdeveloped areas, bridging the gap between technology and those who had been excluded from its benefits. Alexander knew that this was his chance to truly change the world, to leave a lasting legacy that wasn't just about profit, but about giving back. In the end, Alexander's journey was one of transformation. From a man seeking power at all costs, he had evolved into a visionary leader who saw the potential for technology to make the world a better place. He had faced betrayal, adversity, and personal loss, but he had come out stronger on the other side. As for the future, it remained uncertain. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities, and new obstacles to overcome. But for Alexander, the journey was no longer about survival, it was about shaping a world that future generations could be proud of. And there you have it. The first chapter of Alexander Hunter's incredible journey is complete, but the story is far from over. The battle for power, the twists of fate, and the question of trust, all lead to one thing, a legacy yet to be written. What do you think will happen next? Will Alexander's rise continue? Or will new forces emerge to challenge everything he's fought for? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know how you think this story will unfold. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course, subscribe to stay up to date on the next thrilling chapter of Alexander's saga. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, in the world of ambition, the stakes are always high, and nothing is ever as it seems.